Hi, everyone. It's Alec Crawford, your host for the AI Risk Reward podcast. And today, our very special guest is Daniel Goddard, founder and CEO of Dysko. Welcome, Daniel.
Alec, it's a pleasure, mate. Thank you very much for having me, and hello, everybody.
Yeah, so it is Dysko with a Y, Dysko. And I normally ask about kind of origin stories of companies and
Mm.
stuff like that. But today we're going to start with the origin story of Daniel because he just got a really interesting upbringing, surfing in Australia, became more academic. So tell us about your journey, from Australia to LA and starting this company.
My life it's funny, the more I discuss it, the more podcasts I do, I start to look at myself as a third party person looking at myself, almost like, I'll start referring to myself in the third person, because I've never really, and I imagine a lot of people experience this. When you're in it, you don't kind of see it from that big 30,000 foot looking down perspective. You're kind of like too busy in the trenches, like dodging the bullets and like shooting back. And I start to realize, the more I kind of self-analyze my existence, that, we're all born, we're all kind of like groomed in our own way to pursue a path, but somewhere along that way, we find our own way. And I think what happens, that I've learned, is that, and this is what I try and do with my kids, is that I want my kids, just as I have found my path, and I found my path later after I was in the middle of college. I had 6 months to go. I was studying business and I dropped out. I want my kids and everyone who's watching this to understand that we all have an intrinsic desire, want, and need to fulfill a specific purpose. And what happens is that sometimes external forces, whether it be parents or educators, whatever, kind of say, this is what you should do. You should do this. And you kind of go, okay, because you haven't yet decided yet what it is you want. And you kind of like take that advice, and you end up going down a path, and then you end up ultimately autocorrecting. And I think the goal is to find a way to not burn too many years, because we are only here for a very limited amount of time in the big scheme of things, to get onto the path that really, I think, that inside you're meant to do. So I ended up, after a very extensive private school education where I was meant to be very highly academic. And I'd always kind of like done other things. I was very into photography. At one point, I wanted to be a photojournalist, like a war correspondent photojournalist, because I really loved the idea of, just discovering that part of myself and in these situations and capturing these moments. And so I'd always been creative, and I ended up going after school into a university in Australia to study business, and I dropped out with 6 months to go, and I decided to pursue acting. I'd always enjoyed acting, doing school plays and whatnot, but I think for me, what it was, I was searching for something that would bring me some happiness, because I wasn't happy with the path I was on. And acting offered the ability to explore different parts of the things I could be in life. Like, you could be a cop, you could be a plumber, you could be an Air Force pilot. You weren't just locked into one regimented sort of path. So I pursued that. I started working in Australia. There wasn't a lot of work there, so I ultimately left and moved to Los Angeles, where I ended up with a TV show called Beastmaster. Beastmaster, I had a pet eagle and a pet tiger and ferrets. It was based on a book and a series from the 50s. It was made into movies in the 80s, and so I ended up doing that for a couple of years. Then ultimately, I ended up on Young and the Restless, where I did almost 1,200 episodes of soap opera. Huge learning curve on many different ways. What people don't understand about soap opera is it's like being in a fist fight every day. It's like, you have prize fighters who train 3 months, 4 months for a fight. Being on a soap opera is every day you're in a street fight, because that's how it works. It's like you don't have the time. No one's got the time from a production side or anything to like turn it into like There Will Be Blood, which we talked about, my favorite movie of all time. Um, and ultimately you start to learn a lot about yourself even more. But along the way, what it did is it allowed me to really kind of end up where I am right now, which is an understanding of launching Dysko, which is an AI networking application. And it all originated from the fact that I would do fan events, and I would go to conventions, and I would do all these experiences where you would meet fans and they'd come up to get an autograph and take a photo with you. And they'd be in groups, and they'd say, you know what, if it wasn't for your show and your character, we never would have met. And then as we started to get to know each other, we realized we had all these different things in common. And the depth of their experience it extrapolated over not just one or two things. It was like underneath it, like 5, 6, 7, 8 other things. And therefore the friendship deepened. So ultimately it led to Dysko, which we can talk about, a little bit, but that's kind of like the journey I've been on. And now I kind of feel like I understand more about myself, and I understand more about the path that I think I'm meant to forward for life here.
That's so cool. Great intro. Did you have any mentors over that period of time, either in acting or business or?
I had a mentor in acting in Australia who was kind of like, I'd want to say like the Meryl Streep of Australia. And it's interesting because she was older, a lot older, and she was very jaded. But that said, it's like it'd be like finding an old boxer at the end of his career, and you're an up and coming boxer, and if they could download into you everything that they've learned that you should not do, or everything that you should focus on, or how to deal with the trials and tribulations of forging a path into sort of entertainment, because there's a lot of rejection.
Mhm.
I mean, the amount of rejection you face as an actor, even once you start working, but prior to that, when you get your first job, it is just copious lashings of rejection. And it either makes you or breaks you. And I think that having a mentor helping you understand that it is a machine, it is a system, and you're a cog in that wheel. You're a cog in that machine, and you're not the biggest cog. You'll never be the biggest cog. And if you think you're the biggest cog, then that's the point where your career comes to an end, because then you're unworkable. You can't be professional enough to be the cog that helps the machine turn. So there's all these little lessons you learn along the way, and I think they're applicable to all aspects of life.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, but rejection is it's inexplicable, the amount of rejection. And it's not like, you might say have another career doing something different and you get rejection. You go, that's okay, because there's so many jobs out there. But with acting, there's such a limited amount of jobs out there. You might put on a show and go, oh, there's so much work. But there's not, because there's so many things outside of your control. Like if they shoot a show that you're watching, you go, I love this show. But let's say they shoot in Atlanta. They might buy the tax codes that got them the tax rebates. They've got to cast 80% of the people in Atlanta, which means they only bring in the A-list stars that are going to get the show greenlit to make the show go. Or you go out for an audition for something on paper, you're perfect for it. It describes you to a T. It's just like you. It's your age, your look, your nationality, your accent, everything. You go in and you think, I had a great read, I'm going to get the job. And you'll see they cast someone who's nothing like you, raw, a different look, different height. It's almost like Tootsie. And there's a start in the beginning of Tootsie where Dustin Hoffman's like, you're too tall, you're too short, you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too old, you're too young. It's like whatever they tell you, the next time they tell you the opposite. And you start to go, well, is it me? Is it me? Or is it, what is it? It must be me. Then it either breaks you, or as I was saying, it makes you. So ultimately, they're the journeys that acting sort of, it's you walk a path of fire, and then ultimately you hope to be reborn by that fire and forged by that flame. And then if you pursue it long enough, or you leave it, you move on to something else, you take those lessons and you move to your next station in life.
Yeah, I read a great book. It's Michael Dell's autobiography,
Oh,
and
that'd be great. I haven't read that. I would
there
love
are
to
two.
read that.
Yeah, there are two themes there. One is you really got to set your own way. The other one is rejection, right? So
Yeah.
set your own way. He's literally, his parents wanted to be a doctor. He studied to be a doctor, but he's sitting in the back of class reading computer magazines,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So clearly that's really what he wanted to do, and that's what he ended up doing. But when his parents called him out on this, like his mom is crying. He's like, no, I promise I'll go back and study. He lasted 10 days studying. And then he's like, yeah, I'm going to be doing the computer stuff. But his parents were rejecting him. They're like, this is such a crazy idea. It could be a hobby, but not
Right.
like a real business. You should be a doctor.
Well, what's interesting about Michael Dell, and I haven't read the book, but I've looked a lot into Michael Dell in his past because I actually kind of was looking for inspiration and stuff back in the day. And I remember reading Michael was in college and he started building computers for friends in college. So he was fortunate enough at least to crack the code at a young point in his life and then build it out from there. It's more difficult for people, and the viewers can attest to this, is that when you forge a path and then you have to pivot later in life and you've built yourself a life where you have a family, you have kids, you have financial responsibility, and then all of a sudden you're back at ground zero. That's where the fear factor kicks in. And that's where the doubt kicks in. That's where you say, no, 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 I shouldn't do this. I have to do the right thing because if I do this, everything can fall apart. I can lose everything. And then you go on this downward spiral of self-doubt. And then you've got to somehow find that inner demon almost that says, fuck it. This is my life. I'm going to do this. I don't fucking care if I fall on my face and break every bone in my face and lose everything I've got. I will not be able to live with myself if I don't make this step.
Yeah, that's called There Is No Plan B. Burn the boats.
Plan B. And it's funny, I remember I went over to England. We have family in England because all my family came out on the convict ships to Australia back in 1788. And I went back to England on the way to America. So I came from Australia to America. I got here in 96. And then I went to England towards the end of 96 because the plane ticket I had a free ticket to England and back. So I thought I'll go and see my family. And I have an uncle over there, and he said, so what do you do if it doesn't work out? This is acting wise. He said, what are you going to do if it doesn't work out? And I said, it's going to work out. He goes, but what are you going to do if it doesn't? I said, no, it's going to work out. He goes, but what are you going to do if it doesn't? I said, no, 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 it's going to work out. And in my mind, there was no plan B because I don't believe you can go on any journey if you're going to climb Mount Everest, you're going to climb Mount Everest. No one goes to climb Mount Everest expecting not to reach the summit. And if you don't reach the summit, it's because somewhere along the way, someone died, you got frostbite, or a storm came in and everyone would have died. And the person you paid 60 grand to go and climb Mount Everest said, no, 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 if you guys die, I'll never get another client. We're not doing it. It's no one ever goes, oh, there's the summit. I'm close enough. Nah, I'm not going to go and summit this mountain. No one does that.
Yeah, it's always someone else. So now I think it's time to hear about the origin story for Dysko. Let's hear it.
So Dysko solves a pain point that I believe existed for too long and it still exists. And the pain point is, how do you meet people just like you into the things you're into that you otherwise would never have the opportunity or the ability to meet? So we created, and this stems from it stems from doing the personal appearances and the fan events where I'd meet people and they'd tell us his story. And I'd think, well, if it wasn't for Young and the Restless and the character I played on Young and the Restless, they never would have met. And you see right now that they have an incredible friendship and they go on trips together. They go on cruises together. They do family things and they got a support group. And it's not just one group of the people. It's like little tiny groups that have forged these little friendships. And you realize the commonality they had was Young and the Restless and my character on Young and the Restless because they came to see me at a fan event. So I started saying to my business partner, how do we take that and allow people who are strangers to find a way to meet other people around them that are just like them into the same things, whether it be a business setting or a social setting, so work or social. So Dysko came about where we kind of looked at what is the thing that's being used at the moment in all social media and all forms of communication through social media that allows people to find uniformity, and that's hashtags. Hashtags are what you define. I'm into hashtag this, hashtag that. Every advertising campaign, hashtag, 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 hashtag. So we said, okay, so if people can define themselves by hashtags, how then do you allow them to accumulate hashtags, create an algorithm that then they can meet other people? So we came up with that algorithm. Then we said to ourselves, how then do you take that and allow in a real world use case people to then apply this technology? Well, imagine, Alec, you go to a convention and you let's say it's at Las Vegas, or just you're living a life. Let's say you're walking around your local city. You can create a profile with Dysko that defines you by all the tags that you're into, whether it be movies you're into, hobbies, sports, vocations, your work stuff, whatever it is. And then as you're walking along, you can set your radius from like 0.1 miles to 10 miles. As you walk and you enter the radius of other people, we connect you together. Then the algorithm lets you know what you have in common with that person. Let's say you have 8 tags in common. You get notified, and then the AI in the app allows you to choose the topics that you want to talk to that stranger about. And they're a stranger. You don't know anything about them other than, oh my God, this person that's in my radius has these things in common. I really want to communicate with that person. But you don't want to start messaging, hi, Bill, hi, Wendy, like, how are you today? So we get to let you can do that if you want manually, but the AI allows you to say, okay, so we have this movie, this sport, this hobby, whatever it is, this work sort of the occupation in common. You choose those tags, message. It creates an AI message based upon those tags with either a social tone or a work-based tone, and then it's you send it to the person. They receive the message, and then they can reply back using things they have in common, or they can extrapolate upon it with other tags in common. So the goal is to find people and mine people in your proximity that allow you to connect with them, and then allow AI to begin the conversation. So before you know it, a stranger is now no longer a stranger, but there's someone that you actually have many things that matter to you in common, and you can get to deal flow faster, or you can get to friendship faster. So we ended up then creating this technology and then allowing people also the ability to take themselves and drop themselves at any GPS location anywhere in the world. So let's say you have a convention that's taking place in Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Convention Center. Right now, you would have to get on a plane, fly there, walk around the convention floor, see people's name tags, walk up, hi, how you doing? Nice to meet you. I'm Alec. You kind of know what they're into because they'll say they're with this company or that company, but then you start a conversation. How long does that conversation last before you realize there is no end of the conversation that suits the purpose of why you're at the convention? We allow you to drop into that convention by placing yourself there. And then anyone at that convention from anywhere in the world can also drop in, and then the same methodology applies, where then you will start matching with everyone at that convention. You'll get notifications, you'll see who's there, begin AI conversation, and get straight to deal flow faster. So either if you're there in person on the floor walking around, or you're dropping in through the GPS location, drop-in technology, you can match as well. So you can attend 10 conventions in one day, because we limited it to 10 technically, where we allow you to place what we call as a disco billboard. So you go to the convention, you love this convention, you drop into it, you love what's there, so you leave yourself behind as a disco billboard there, and then you go to the next convention. There might be one in Tokyo. You go to that convention, people are there, you start mixing with them, you leave yourself behind, you go to the next one. So then you go about your day, gardening, playing with the kids, watching a game, whatever, and the app is networking for you all around the world with other people at these places that have things in common, and you'll get notified, then you can start conversations. Then you strip all the banal, exhausting manpower hours of forging these relationships into a very simplified, short amount of time.
Wow, that's pretty wild. And look, I think what people discovered, after COVID was human connection's really important,
Yes.
and it's not just uh, seeing people online. So this allows you to connect with new people and then interact with them as humans as well.
Absolutely. And to that point, what we discovered, because I have a 16-year-old son and a 19-year-old son, after COVID, you bring this up, and it's a great point, is that COVID did such a number on teenagers when it came to causing their social anxiety to go up. Studies say that there are 35% of all kids who go to college and in high school that suffer from social anxiety disorder. So we've partnered with about 12 colleges at the moment, from Syracuse to Kentucky University to Southern University, where they can use Dysko as their technology platform to allow kids who have not yet gone to the college to drop in, leave themselves there. So you get to make your friend groups before you get to college on day one. Or when you get to college on day one, you can stand on campus and look at the app, and you'll see there's a map of the campus. You'll see it, and you'll see all the profiles around that. You'll see, you can say, I only want to see profiles that match with me. And then you'll see the profiles, you see what you have in common. So we want to give kids the ability to meet kids just like them and take that social anxiety out of it. We have the national director of the suicide prevention committee on board as our chief medical doctor in order to help people understand that the damage that social anxiety is doing to kids. So we want to help kids find ways to meet people just like them, so they can have friendships that matter and they don't feel so insular. Because my son, on his very first day when he went to college, the one he decided to go to, he had 5 he could have gone to. And with Dysko, he could have placed himself at 5 different colleges, seen who he met with, and said, well, academically, they're all what I want to do. I can study the same thing at all 5, but they want to go to the one where they feel like they're going to have a social experience. So he could have narrowed that down and chosen the right one based on that. But the one he ultimately decided to go to, because it was closer to home, because he didn't want to have to go too far away because of the social anxiety disorder. We're sitting in orientation, and the girl gets up on stage and she says, I want to tell you, the first year here was horrible. And we're like, that's not what you should be saying. You should be saying, I love this school. This school is great. But she was honest about it. And she said, but I want to let you know, by year 2, it gets better. I found all my friends. I found my clique. And I'm sitting there going, with Dysko, you could have done that on day 1. You shouldn't have gone through that year. You should not have had that process of just self-doubt and not enjoying the experience. That's what Dysko can do for people, whether it be for dating, for college, for making friends, or for convention people, in order to help facilitate deal flow.
Yeah, absolutely. AI can be very helpful. And also, there are some concerns about AI. I mean, one big concern as the technology advances is obviously privacy. So how do you think about that with Disco?
Absolutely. That's one of the number one things we looked at, because we want people to feel safe. So we allow everyone to have a private profile, which means that no one can see anything you're into or anything about you unless you choose to connect with them. Then on top of that, you have the ability to block people, report people. You can be invisible, so no one can see you if you don't want to be bothered at that time. It's one of those things that we focus grouped a lot of kids, especially college kids, when we started building this. And one of the girls, actually, I thought this was a really interesting use case, because we went around the room with everyone and said, so how would you use it? How would you use it? And this one girl said, I would use it because there's a club I love going to. But if I just broke up with my boyfriend, I went there last week and he was there, so we all left and went to a different club. She goes, I would use it and I would drop into that club and I'd see if he was there. And if he was, I wouldn't go to that club. So I was like, that's cool. So everyone found their own use case, and there's almost like a safety, privacy way that the app can work. And one of the other features we have in the app is that you can turn off your GPS location within X amount of miles of your work or your house. So as you get towards your house, you disappear. So no one can track you or no one knows who you are. But you have complete control over who sees you, how they see you, where they see you.
Yeah, that's very thoughtful. They've obviously thought a lot about this, and through your focus groups, really fine-tuned the product. So I'll leave to the end of the show how to track this down and how to try it. But so let's just pivot to AI now. And so are you using what personal tools or tools for work are you using for AI productivity at this point?
In my life,
Yeah.
ChatGPT.
Yep.
That would be the number one AI tool. As far as AI becoming like this human destroying beast, do I think it's possible? Anything is possible. But when all things are said and done, I think at this point we're a long way away from that, because AI right now is not yet really machine learning at a level where you see in Terminator. Ultimately, could it get to it? Of course it will. But I think it comes down to, there needs to be a system of checks and balances. Will that be applied? I don't know. But I would like to think, for the safety and the sanctity of humanity, that somewhere along the way we'll always remain holding the leash on AI. And it won't be like, the tail wags the dog.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, I always say, like, never give AI the nuclear codes. That's kind of like
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Well, it's like HAL in 2001. It's like, they lock you out of the spaceship.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's think about it. We're going to shift to our advice section now. What's the best advice you received? And obviously, you've done so many different things. Like, it could be about being a founder or technology. It could be about acting.
Do what makes you happy.
Wow, that's great advice. You may not
Do
make any
what
money
makes
from
you
that.
happy. Because
but-
everybody's level of happiness is different.
Mhm.
Some people's happiness might be grinding themselves into dust while they try and become, launching an AI networking app. Other people might say, you know what? I like to fish.
Yeah.
If I can make enough money to be able to fish all day long, that's what I want to do. And intrinsically, we all know deep down inside what brings us happiness.
Yeah.
And if you don't allow that to happen, and I'll tell you the other thing, don't drink. Because I can tell you this out of experience, that when you reach a very dark place in life because you feel like you've done everything that you can to make something happen and it doesn't give, the doors don't open and you feel like you're pushing a boulder uphill, your body turns to the want to self-soothe, and you want to turn to something that brings you some sort of escape. But in that process, all you do is get further away from the goal that you're trying to get to. You have to find something productive. Go fish, go 10-pin bowling, learn to meditate, do something that's positive. Always try and find levels of escape that will allow you to become more understanding of yourself and what it is that will help you find your happiness.
Yeah. My version of that is go play golf. so,
There you go. Go play golf. Absolutely.
so, since we're still in our advice section now, you're thinking about disco and AI and technological change. CEO comes to you, big company in the US, and says, Daniel, I'm just trying to understand, like, what should we be doing with AI to help our company do better? What's your advice?
It's a great question because as in a capitalist society, the answer is always, well, find AI that can actually help you eradicate employees that are causing your company to stall. You know, you'll see this in production in factories. Like, a perfect example, there was a massive last year the longshoreman strike that took place around the country, especially down here in Long Beach, where they were doing everything they can to stop automation of the docks,
Mm-hmm.
right? But what ultimately happens is that humans will be replaced. Like, autonomous
Mm-hmm.
driving will take over. Therefore, all cab drivers, all Uber drivers, all Lyft drivers, all truck drivers will be replaced. Insurance companies will love this because it's less accidents. Traffic will flow better because once you have every car connected through AI and we all enter, where do we want to go? We want to go to this location. The AI interconnects every single car on the freeway. It says, you're going here, they're going there. They've got to get off the freeway in 1 mile. It will let every car just micro adjust. That car will micro adjust and traffic flows, as opposed to somebody cutting traffic off, everybody hitting their brakes, some causing an accident. AI will always be, from a pure capitalist society, some way to increase profit and decrease margins or increase margins. So I think what we need to be able to do is find a way where we can find some semblance of harmony, where it's like, okay, how can you use AI to make what you do better so we don't have to replace humans? But ultimately, I think progress is inevitable, just as there's no longer a steam train, just as newspapers eventually will come to an end. There's a generation that grew up with newspapers. They like to open it. They like to smell. My grandfather loved to smell the ink, loved the feel of the paper. My kids have never picked up a newspaper. My kids never put a cassette in the cassette deck. They've never put a CD player in. They've never put, when they were little, they put a DVD in, but now it's all streaming. So you can't hang on to old technology. You have to accept progress. But the question is, along the way, how much progress are we willing to accept at the cost of the human experience?
Yeah, great advice. So we're going to shift to our last section, which is called underrated, overrated. This is a lightning round where
Go.
I mention things and you tell me if you
Overrated or
think they're,
underrated? Let's do it.
yeah, and then a brief explanation.
Go.
Surfing at Bondi Beach.
Underrated. There's too many people in the water. The waves don't break that well. And if you have a surfboard there, you're kind of like a poser.
The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Underrated or overrated?
I'd like to say I don't know what that is. What is it? Advice?
Yeah,
Is it?
it's a book about startups, and Eric Ries's version of that, the Lean Startup, is basically don't take venture capital money, bootstrap everything, do the best you can for as long as you can.
Underrated. I'll tell you why, because that's what we did with Disco. Because what happens is that, you know, if you can get angel money, that's great. If you get VC money, the cost up front and the way you have to dilute yourself as it takes off. Look, at the end of the day, the goal is to get the product built. It's like making a movie. I know a lot of people that they wrote a script, they were raising money for it, the money was trickling in, took too long. They said, fuck it, I'm just going to make the movie. I'll cast it how I got to cast it. I'll get it done. There is a tipping point between being too stupid and being too smart. And the goal is to find that balance between, if you've got a good look, here's my take on startups in general. If you have a product that solves a pain point, then you know that somewhere along the way, you will eventually reach that place where someone with money will say to you, I like what you're doing. What is it you're trying to get to 5 years from now? How much money do you need? And you're at that place. Can you get that money? At that point, you probably need that money. But in the very beginning, if you have something that solves a pain point, try and take it as far as you can, because you'll have more to bargain with and barter with when it gets to that point where you actually need the money.
Good answer. Swimming for fitness, overrated or underrated?
Underrated. Swimming for fitness is the greatest physical workout you can do. And I'll tell you why. I have been very physical my entire life. In swimming, there is no wear and tear on the joints. There is no impact on the joints. There's no concussion unless you hit your head on the wall because you can't tumble turn. But, you cardiovascularly, you're going to get stronger. The only downside would be swimming in like Australia and you get sunburned all the time, end up with skin cancer. So as I say in Australia, it's you use sunscreen. But swimming it's a fundamental exercise that will last your entire lifetime and you'll never have to replace it. Because everyone else who starts running on the roads, I know people who ran 15, 20 years. Now they can barely walk, but they've done 6 marathons and they ran every morning for an hour and a half. I'm like, okay, where are you now? As they cripple and hobble everywhere. It doesn't happen with swimming.
All right. The last time I was in Australia, I tried kind of an unusual dish, at least for Americans. It was tandoori kangaroo. Underrated or overrated?
Oh my gosh, I gotta say that's overrated. I mean, I like tandoori chicken. I've never even heard of tandoori kangaroo. That's a new one. I'd have to call that one overrated.
Skydiving, underrated or overrated?
I've skydived. First time I ever skydived, my chute didn't open properly. I got a thing called a streamer, and it happened because when I pulled the ripcord, I was doing a thing called accelerated free fall, where you train for a day and then you jump out. You have an instructor holding onto the right side of you, one on the left side, and they keep you stable as you fall down. You do all this hand stuff and gestures, and it's to get your license eventually. So it's not like a tandem or a static line where you just jump out and it automatically pulls your chute, or a tandem where you're attached to someone. So you're falling, you pull your ripcord, your parachute opens, and then you glide down. There's big arrows on the ground where they turn the arrows to tell you which way to pull down on the stays of the ripcord or the parachute to turn around. So I pulled my parachute and I went straight out instead of going like this. So as I pulled my arm straight out, my body spun. So all the lines of the chute tangled up. So the chute's like a little picnic basket at the top, like picnic tablecloth. And I'm looking up and I remembered so clearly 2 things I remember at that point. They said, if your chute doesn't open properly, you have 5 seconds to cut it away and use your safety chute. And if you do get a streamer, you hold it, you pull it apart and you kick your legs as a pendulum to start unwinding it. So that's what I did. I ultimately got the parachute to unravel and popped open. I'll never forget it. But I tell you what, it happened because on the day of training, I went with a buddy and we just fucked around, made jokes, right? And the instructor said, if you guys don't take this seriously, we're not going to let you go up tomorrow. And basically, I wasn't taking it seriously, and the consequences of that could have been catastrophic. So skydiving, from my point of view, was a massive learning curve for me because it taught me that there are systems in place and instructional systems in place that are there for a very, very, very specific reason. So skydiving, in favor of skydiving.
Wow. Huge tech conferences for networking, underrated or overrated?
Well, if you use Disco there, they're highly underrated. If you use not using Disco there, it's highly overrated.
Watching esports tournaments, underrated or overrated?
Watching them. Wow.
Yeah. Video games could be.
Well, I imagine you're only watching what you play. So therefore, there's once again, that goes back to the Disco thing. We're talking to esports teams about using Disco at these very things, because you've got like League of Legends, for example, gets more people watching it than the NBA Finals and the Super Bowl combined. You get like 120 million people watching these things. And they play them live at like a massive stadium, and everyone's there watching it on big screens. So what we've been talking to these teams about is that allows people at home watching it to connect with the people there watching it, and then advertisers, etc. So I think, look, as long as you somehow move your body and exercise, and you're not a couch potato that plays video games all day long, unless that, once again, that brings you happiness, then if that's what you want, then do it. But for that very purpose alone, I'd say they're middle rated.
Fairly rated. Learning guitar, underrated or overrated?
Underrated. I think any form of musical instrument, even if it's a triangle, allows everyone to have a creative outflow. Because I think every human being in their own way is creative. Because everything we do is some form, even if you cook a meal, it's creation. We're basically on a planet that is regulated by the laws of creation. Because every spring, plants are created, flowers are created, and then come autumn, everything is destroyed. We're in a constant flux of creation and destruction, and that is the rules of the planet we live on, and that's the rules of the universe that we exist within. So I think any form of music and musicality is a very positive thing.
Apple's Vision Pro headset, underrated or overrated?
Great question. In the first iteration of Disco, we used AR. So you would actually hold up your phone, and I'd be sitting here in the room right now, drop into a conference, and as I look around on my screen, I would see all the AR profiles of everybody there, and I could touch those profiles. Or if you were walking down the street and I saw you, I'd look at you, and as you walked, you had an AR profile that would follow you. Then I could touch the profile to know who you were and what you're into, and then connect with you that way. We thought, this was back in 21, this iteration came out. We thought that we were on to the next big thing. However, AR had not taken off. And I read an article this morning actually about the Apple Vision and how they're shutting the whole thing down, because it just hasn't taken off yet and people aren't there yet. Maybe it'll take 15 years, maybe it'll take 20 years, but I do think ultimately it will take off, but just right now, people aren't ready for it.
Yeah. Look, if it were a pair of glasses,
Yeah.
and you could wear like a pair of sunglasses, awesome. You have to wear, a giant thing on
Yeah.
your head with a giant battery pack. People are just
Look,
not.
where I think it works well is they're using it to treat things like social anxiety disorder, or forms of help people with bipolar. There's medical applications for it that allow you to go along experiences. Like if you're using it for a meditation thing where you put it on, you go somewhere and there's something, great. But I think for now, it's just humans aren't ready for it yet, because I don't think society is ready to step away from what they see when they look around.
Okay, related to that question, the movie Ready Player One, underrated or overrated?
I think it's underrated in the sense that ultimately we will get to that place. I have a great belief that ultimately movies will be the ability, let's say it's a James Bond movie. You will be able to say, I want to be James Bond. James Bond will look like you and talk like you, because you upload your self-scan thing into it, has your voice, whatever. So when you get to watch the movie, I think all humans at some extent has some form of narcissism. And I think it comes from the sense that people value themselves and they want to see themselves succeed. And that's why people go on social media, they post something, they do something, they check the comments, how many people liked it, how many people liked it. I think the ability to, in the future, like instead of watching just Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, you could say, no, I want to see, Will Smith in Mission Impossible. You can interchange the characters and go, who do you want to watch in this movie? Because you're a Will Smith fan. Ultimately, I think it's going to happen because there's more money to be made from the movie side, production side, everything. But ultimately, you may want to be Ethan Hunt in Mission Impossible. So Ready Player One, allows, I think, that mindset moving forward. And ultimately, I think that's where we will get to.
Awesome. Daniel, thank you for coming on the show. This has been awesome. Did you have fun?
Had a good time, Alec. Nice. It was nice chat. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. Well, everyone, this has been Daniel Goddard, founder and CEO of Dysko with a Y. If you want to learn more, you can go to the show notes, or Daniel, tell us how else they can find you.
Yeah, sure. Dysko is spelled Dysko, and we did that because we didn't want to compete with from an SEO point of view with Disco, the dance thing, and we didn't want people thinking it was about dancing. So we will be available in the App Store. We're releasing our new version in about 2 weeks. App Store and the Play Store. Download it, check it out. Would love to hear your thoughts on it. The website is dysko.co. We will launch the .ai version, but it'll forward to it. And if they want to, there's also, I run a marketing company that they can check out. It's called Under the In, short for Under the Influence. It's underthein.com. There's links all through at the bottom of every page to get in touch. And I'd love to hear everyone.
Awesome. Daniel, thank you so much. Great to have you.
Pleasure, Alec. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.